Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Evercade on the channel, and today I want to talk about the next console or next game system I want to see as the Evercade roster. And obviously, as you can tell by the thumbnail and title, it's Sega Game Gear. Now, why do I want the Sega Game Gear and not something like the Master System, which I know is already available, or like something like the Dreamcast or the Saturn or the PC Engine or the BBC Micro or ZX Spectrum? Quite simply, the reason I want the Sega Game Gear is because, well, the Sega Game Gear, their games have barely ever been released. I don't ever think they've been released outside of the platform, which is quite scary to me. And there is no, well, there is a Game Boy Micro, but they ain't really much. So, what is the Sega Game? The Sega Game Gear is obviously a 8-bit handheld console released in the 90s by Sega to compete with Nintendo's Game Boy line consoles and the Atari Lynx. Now, obviously, the Game Gear here is quite big, quite a chunky boy, and it's an 8-bit system, so it should easily run on Evercade. It's using a lot of the same hardware that the Master System used, so it should be quite easy to, get the games running on Evercade. Now, some of the games on the system, obviously, quite a few of them were ports from like Mega Drive, slash Genesis, and Master System games. But there are several great games made exclusively for the Game Gear, like Axe Battler, like Tails Adventure, like Sonic Triple Trouble, like Sonic Drift 2. There are several games, there's tons of games on the Game Gear. Obviously, a lot of them were made by Sega themselves. Obviously, this system didn't really have the best third-party support. But to me, it's kind of a shame, right? Because we haven't seen these games re-released on other systems. So the only real way to buy them now is just, well, you can't really buy them now unless you fork out, hundreds, if not thousands, for the original hardware. I know some of the games are quite cheap to get, but some games are like 100 plus just for the cartridge. So it's kind of sad. And Sega doesn't tend to re-release their old games, which is really unfortunate. At least they haven't re-released their games outside the Mega Drive, and I think a few Dreamcast games are re-released as well. But that's basically it. So to me, guys, personally, I would like to see the Game Gear come to Evercade, and I'd hopefully Blaze Entertainment can make a deal with Sega Enterprises, obviously, to get some of their games on Evercade, and if they do, start with the Game Gear. The Game Gear is an underrated console. There's so many great games on it, and in order to collect for it now, you have to be probably a millionaire or win the lottery, because you ain't gonna be able to afford games like Tails Adventure, which is like £70 just for the cartridge, 100 to 200 if you want it complete in box or mint condition. Sonic Triple Trouble, I've seen that retail for like £150. It's just too expensive. Personally, I kind of feel as if, you know, Sega's obviously let their own legacy down by ignoring the Game Gear, not releasing the Game Gear collection. So I'm hoping Blaze Entertainment can go to Sega with a proposal like, hey, can we license some games from the Game Gear, you know, and then release them on the Evercade systems, see how that does, and that might convince Sega to then re-release those games on other collections or other systems. I think it's just kind of sad that we haven't seen Game Gear games re-released, because there are so many great little games within the Sega Game Gear library that are just basically lost to time now, because Sega's not really done anything with them. It's the same thing with the Master System. If Sega could, if Blaze can get Sega on board with the Game Gear, hopefully they get them to do the Master System as well, and then maybe Mega Drive after that. Because personally, guys, this might sound quite controversial, might seem quite bad, but I own a Mega Drive. I've played Mega Drive games on tons of systems: the PSP, the Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox Series S. I just don't see the need to get a Mega Drive collection as of now. I know games like Sonic the Hedgehog are hugely popular on the Mega Drive. That game's huge and everyone knows it. Streets of Rage as well. But personally, I think Blaze should focus on getting the Game Gear library. If they get a Sega console and get Sega on board, get the Game Gear library, get the Master System, then do Mega Drive. Because those two systems that I want before the Mega Drive, their libraries are actually shockingly good. It's just we don't really see those games re-released. So hopefully Blaze could then basically go in, get those games, release the cartridges, and then hopefully people would then sit back and be like, okay, cool. Now I can play these games. They might rediscover some of these games. They might discover them from the first time, and then they might think, oh, I'll buy an Evercade. And then Sega might be convinced to release their games on other systems. It's just win-win for everyone. Because Blaze gets more games, Evercade collectors get more games to play, and then Sega can kind of look at the sales numbers and be like, okay, cool, these games have done really well. Let's do our own collection on the Switch or the PlayStation or the Xbox or PC or whatever. Both parties win. Blaze and Sega would both win, and gamers would also win because then those games are preserved, those games have been re-released, and yeah, it's just good for everyone. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below, guys. Do you agree? Would you like to see Sega Game Gear games over Sega Mega Drive games, or what? What's this? Would you for Master System? What system do you want to see on Evercade? Let me know your comment. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to hit 300 subs by the end of the year. Like, share all that stuff. I'll see you next one. Peace.